Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. Good afternoon. My name is Nadia Faucette, and I am very, very excited to be here today to invite you to our first Executives Unplugged Luncheon sponsored by Synovus. As I said, my name is Nadia Faucette. I'm the chair of the board of directors for Douglas County Chamber. I'm also the vice president of engineering with Greystone Power. And again, welcome. I want to personally thank you for being here this afternoon. I would like to invite James Harper with Douglasville First Presbyterian Church to come forward and lead us in our invocation and our pledge.
Good to see you today. Let's pray. God, you're good, and you have done so well at providing for us food for the body and food for the soul. We also come today looking to be people who receive food for the mind as we endeavor to be creative and innovative and seeking success. But we also pray that you give us today a vision for significance and how we can not only do well, but be well for this community and to bring prospering to the whole of Douglas County. Thank you for the chamber and the work that they do to be leaders in that. And we pray that you bless our time together. And we pray these things in Christ's name. Amen. Let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Next, I'd like to take a moment and recognize some of our special guests. But before we do that, let's talk about our sponsor. I would like to invite our gold sponsor, Athena Bryant from Synovus, to the stage for remarks. As she's coming to the stage, I want you to do a small favor for me. Today is her birthday. So if we can, we don't have to sing, but if at least we can do a big birthday shout for my friend Athena, I think she would really appreciate and it would really embarrass her. So if we could, on the count of three, say happy birthday. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday!
Thank you. That was so sweet. Oh my goodness. That was awesome. Thank y'all. It's an honor to be here today representing Synovus Bank. I'm Athena Bryant. I'm a retail market lead at our Chapel Hill office here in Douglasville. Synovus has been a proud member of the chamber for many years, and we're really thrilled to host the luncheon. I'm here today with my wonderful teammates. I'm going to let them stand up, and I can introduce you to everyone. Okay, we have Martha Miller. Martha is a commercial lending assistant at the Chapel Hill office. We have Kevin Sledge, commercial lender at Chapel Hill. And we have Megan Bryant, private wealth advisor. She's located at Chapel Hill, but all over the place, different offices. Parrish Camp is our merchant service consultant, and she resides at Chapel Hill, but lots of offices. And then we have Myron Gooding. He's our market manager at the Church Street location here in Douglasville. So I'm happy to have everybody here. Thank you again.
Thank you, Athena. Next, I'd like to take a moment to recognize some special guests. If you are a board member of the Douglas County Chamber, could you please stand and introduce yourself? Board members? Kyle, let's start with you. Awesome, thank you. And Athena for Synovus. Round of applause. Also, we need to recognize our diplomats and the business outreach team. If you could, diplomats, please stand for a round of applause. And I know we have some elected officials here with us. If you could please stand and introduce yourself. Thank you very much. Also, I would like to recognize a group I'm very proud of, our 2023 Cornerstone investors. The Cornerstone level is the highest level of investment for the Chamber, and I'm sure many of you have noticed some of their headshots on the slide today, but I do want to thank and recognize the group that's sitting up here in the Cornerstone seats. So if you are a chairman circle or a visionary partner, if you could please stand and introduce yourself as well. We'll start with Kevin Sledge, representing Bryant from Synovus. Thank you. Pumphrey, Douglas, economic partnership. Amy McCoy, also known as the Amy McCoy. That's right. You're supposed to say it out loud. That's right.
So good. Brendan Kelly, University of West Georgia, for all of his education. Chris Eisner, Georgia Power, we keep your lights on.
All right, thank you so much. Yes, give them another round of applause. So now if you introduce yourself, you need a tagline to follow, so be thinking and ready. So now let's get into our program. I will say I have been so excited about this program because, again, it is our first Executives Unplugged, but also it is going to be a fireside chat for two leaders, senior leaders of the organization's executives, to come sit down and talk about their business aspirations and share with us their journey. So I'm excited to hear from two of those fine men that we have here today. And first is our very own Chris Pumphrey. Chris is the president of Elevate Douglas. I should know that. I'm on your board. Sorry. President of Elevate Douglas Economic Partnership. He does an amazing work here in Douglas County. And so let's give him a round of applause. So he'll be coming to the stage. And also I want to introduce you to Jay Bailey. He's president and CEO of Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs. I told him earlier today that I kind of stalk him on social media because he does such great posts. If you're not following him, please do. Please welcome them with a warm round of applause.
Thank you, sir.
All right, hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, y'all sounded so enthusiastic like 2 minutes ago. Good afternoon, everybody. All right, excellent. It's an honor to be up here with you all this morning. I feel like y'all know a lot about me. I think the opportunity really is to learn about this man over here and really kind of get some wisdom and impartations from him. So as mentioned, my name is Chris Pumphrey. president of Elevate Douglas Economic Partnership. We are the public-private partnership nonprofit organization for economic development here in Douglasville and Douglas County. And it truly is an honor to be here and an honor to sit here and share this stage with Jay. And so we're going to kick it off. This is going to be a conversation. I think Sarah was very nervous about what we were going to talk about. We took a much shorter time period to talk about what we're going to talk about than the time we're going to spend on the stage today, because we've known each other for several years now. And so I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to let Jay introduce himself, just tell you a little bit about himself, and then we'll kind of kick things off.
Hey, everybody. I'm a city boy with country roots. That's a fun thing to say, actually. I'm the kid that started his first business at 12. I bought my first house at 19. I made my first million by the time I was 23 years old. Don't clap yet. I didn't have good money role models. And everybody that looked like me on TV that I emulated was blowing money fast and making it rain. So I did the same. I guess it was about 2008. I was around 28. I went from living in a 10,000 square foot home to literally being homeless, living in a 9x9 storage unit on Mountain Industrial Boulevard in Tucker, Georgia. I heard the pastor say it in his prayer invocation earlier. I learned the very same lesson. By the world standards, I have been successful. Cars, clothes, houses, traveling, and everything else that we feel is the basis of success. I was successful, but I had zero significance, and I had done nothing to put a dent in this world. Once I started to choose significance, everything changed. From homelessness within 4 years, I was helping to run a $30 million nonprofit organization in 10 countries. I retired at the age of 39 and made my wife a very strong promise, and it was dramatic. That may be Douglas County. Is Sweetwater Creek in Douglas? I was in Douglas County when I made this. We were by the riverside holding hands. That I'd never get another job again, that I would always create and have my own path, that I would create my own lane, I would create jobs for others, I'd create wealth for our family, until I had to take that promise back with this opportunity that I have now. There are just very few times in life where you get to be a part of something you know will outlast you. And there are even rarer moments where you get to be a part of something that could potentially change the course of history. And I have the great honor to be able to carry forward the legacy of one of the greatest entrepreneurs this state has ever produced in H.J. Russell. And it's one of those things that I owe too much to that legacy to say no to this very daunting task. But my personal motto, if you really just kind of want to know where my earth comes from, is plant seeds that will grow trees whose shade you may never sit under. And in saying that, I had to accept the opportunity to become president and CEO of the largest center in the world dedicated to growing, scaling, and developing Black-owned businesses. And it's been a journey. 4 years ago, we had 0 employees, 0 money, and a completely gutted out building. Fast forward to today, we've raised a little north of $49 million and counting. We support 305 entrepreneurs full-time and 10,000 annually that we touch. We've gone from 0 employees to north of 27, and in my opinion, we're just getting started. So I'm really passionate about the work that we do. But it is there's so much work to be done. So no, Chris, it's an honor to be here. And let's have a conversation, brother, because none of this is scripted. So y'all gonna get what you get.
That is a true statement. So Jay and I first met 2015 at the Regional Leadership Institute down in Savannah. By far the best Regional Leadership Regional Leadership Institute class ever. Is not even worth the discussion. And so when I had the opportunity to meet Jay, I had no idea who he was, didn't know a thing about him. But in a matter of 7 days, I became a fan of him. And at the time, Jay was running an organization, the Phoenix Leadership Foundation, in the work that they were doing to really support, uplift, inspire young Black men. And I really learned a lot about him as a person through that experience. I think our whole class became to adore him significantly more about that. So We're going to talk about community. We're going to talk about his history. We're going to talk about advice that he might have for us as a community. But I think we kind of already know the answer to this question, but I really would love to know, really, what was it about that group, that the Phoenix Foundation? How did it get started? What were some of the things what is it? How did it get started? What were some of the things that were really most impactful to you as an individual, and maybe some great stories from that?
Wow. Inside baseball that I share rarely, but it's a real story. I was at the height of my nonprofit career. We were raising tremendous amounts of money. I was an advisor on the Small Business Council for Obama. We were traveling everywhere. We were being written up about everything. We had our global economic summit, and Bill Clinton was our keynote speaker. And we maybe had, 30, 40 Fortune 1000 CEOs in the audience and on our speaker dais. And the whole world was applauding. With that organization, I had gone from an office in a basement, in a closet, literally, to now being on the 40th floor of the 191 building downtown with a great view from my office. But after that event, although the whole world was cheering, I found myself in my beautiful office looking at the beautiful skyline in Atlanta, and I literally was crying my eyes out. I felt just like I did in that 9x9 storage unit when I told you that I was homeless before. And Synovus, thank you. You guys were a partner of ours from the beginning, and we'll have another Synovus conversation. You just caught my eye there. Because I was looking out at a beautiful skyline, and although we were in the business of financial literacy, I didn't feel that we were going deep enough or moving the needle strong enough. I looked out at the skyline in the city of Atlanta, the city that I am from, born and raised. Many call it the Black Mecca. But when I looked at that skyline, not a single building in that skyline was owned or controlled by somebody that looked like me. Nearly 50 years of consecutive black leadership, the home of the civil rights movement, the very quintessential city for black affluence and opportunity. None of those buildings were owned by anybody that looked like me. And at the time, I heard a statistic that morning that broke my heart in the truest sense. That the graduation rate for young black men in Atlanta at the time was 37%. And I couldn't let it stand. That's when I decided to retire. That I knew that I could create jobs and create opportunity. I knew that I had a platform that my wife is the superstar, so if y'all get her down here to talk, you can forget about me, she's a real beast. But my wife and I, she rode with me in saying that I wanted to dedicate my life to looking at presenting opportunities to provide exposure, because I think lack of exposure is the greatest contributing factor to poverty or a poverty mindset that one can have. It was my story. But also that I used to be a Boy Scout leader as well. I was a Boy Scout leader for 12 years with the largest inner city Boy Scout troop in America, and a troop in the worst zip code in all of Atlanta, where they told me that I was ridiculous for even trying. But with Troop 100, we had 230 boys from the worst possible conditions that everybody said there's no way it would even be possible. There are too many barriers, there's too much poverty, there'll be too many problems. But we used to wipe the floor with any troop around the country because these boys were exposed to something different. I remember the heartbreaking thing happened when we left Best Academy right off Bankhead Highway, Hollowell Parkway now. The first time I took them camping as a scoutmaster, and I'm driving the van and we turn off Bankhead Highway to get on 285. And everybody starts applauding and cheering and beating on the windows. And me, being the person I am, ignorant, I'm like, y'all shut up. I'm screaming at them, y'all sit down. And they were like, we can't, Scoutmaster, we're so excited. I'm like, about what? He said, we going on the highway. And so most of my boys would live their entire existence in a 10 square block area. And if you live your entire existence in a 10 square block area, what do you dream about? What have you seen that makes you aspire? And if the images that you hear in your ear and see through your eyes are all negative, literally help me understand how you have any shot at progression. And so the Phoenix Leadership Foundation has now become a private foundation for my wife and I. So we run it separately from everything else. But it's still my mission, brother, that we all have to look at opportunities. I think we lose GDP every year because the brilliant ideas that reside on the south side of the tracks of every city in America never reach the marketplaces they don't believe they belong. And so when you talk about exposure and even the work that we're doing now, and certainly with the Phoenix Leadership Foundation, I've seen what it is. My wife she's an NBC journalist. So if you watch Nightly News or Today Show or any of those things, you'll see my wife, Blaine Alexander. But I've seen what happens when Blaine goes into a room of young girls that want to be newscasters. And instantly their life has changed. I've seen what happens when I run into a young man and I'm able to make the kind of connection that he never would have been able to. So when I talk to so many people, there's a story that I'll end with that's real. It doesn't take $1 million contributions. It doesn't take somebody that has this long list of accolades or a resume. There's so much power in your presence. Dr. Gregory Ellison from Emory Divinity School has a story about his auntie, Aunt Dot. And he says he was 8 years old and he walked up to Aunt Dot. And she was rocking on the front porch. And if any of you guys are from the South, you can envision that auntie sitting on the front porch snapping green beans, getting ready for dinner that night. You can see her. And he asked his Aunt Dot, Auntie, I want to change the world. How do you change the world? And Aunt Dot was rocking, old auntie sitting in her chair. And she says, baby, I don't know how to change the world, but I do know you can change the 3 feet around you. And when he said this to me, it stuck forever because literally we think that change comes in big sweeping programs and $1 million endowments, and it doesn't. The reason I became an entrepreneur is because my barber whispered in my ear when I was 11 years old, and it changed my life fundamentally forever, that one whisper. And so when we start to think about our ability to have impact in those around us, far too often we drive right past the people that need help to be at dinners or luncheons or fundraisers to try to help the people we just drove by. And so I encourage everybody to impact the 3 feet around them, and that's really the heart of the Phoenix Leadership Foundation, finding problems that we can do something about and just doing something.
Yeah, it's so true. It's like there's so often times where we're having these meetings, right? We're having meetings to come up with these strategies about people, but we never invite the people in the room to have the discussions about the strategies. And so it's very important that we are doing that engagement, within our local communities at all levels. They may not be in every meeting that we are having, but we have to ensure that the community is connected to the point that those voices are being raised up and elevated in the things that we're doing. It's funny you talk about exposure. So one of the things that, that I have been very intentional about is just my own exposure within other communities, being a part of things that are happening in the region so that those things can inspire me to come back here within this community and figure out what are the things that we could be doing. So an example for RLI, I think before the year I went through RLI, I can't remember the last person in Douglas that went through that program. And it was a thing where in Douglas County, we just weren't engaged in those discussions. And we made it a very intentional aspect of what we do is to ensure that every year there's at least one or two folks who have gone through that RLI program, who are RLI alum that are here in the room.
I don't remember you in my class. No?
Yeah, she wasn't in her class.
2015,
no,
right?
After.
Oh.
Yeah.
Figures.
But it's that continual exposure to the community so that we can go out and you have a collective of inspired individuals that then can come back collectively, right, and make impact and change within your respective community. And so that's something that I wanted to make sure that we continue to do, and I think we'll continue that effort going forward to make sure that we start filling this room up with RLI alum, Leadership Atlanta alum, all these other folks who are really kind of in the network and fabric of the region, helping to elevate what happens here in our local community. So with all that, with all the work that the Russell Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship is doing, I remember that discussion coming into your office and looking out the window, looking down Northside Drive, and reflecting back to the other side of the window and looking at the high rises in downtown Atlanta, and recognizing the fact that that block, that area, truly is the one where Black ownership of land and real estate, probably the highest concentration, exists. So it truly is a testament of Mr. Russell and his leadership and his innovation of what he started right there in that building, and the impact that they've had in that region. So tell us, how does his vision, his leadership parlay into why the Russell Center exists today?
It's hard to talk about our work without talking about the man. For those that don't know the legacy, Herman Russell was a superhero. This brother spoke with a debilitating, almost crippling speech impediment. If you ever hear him speak, he was no one's orator. But he started his first business at 12. He built his first income-producing property at 16. The brother had a pool inside his house at the age of 30 with a tennis court, where a young Dr. King would leave the city to go visit with Herman to figure out how he wanted to change the world. You think that these folks bought plane tickets and hotel stays and meals and bus rides on very meager salaries. No, it was the Black business class that oftentimes underwrote and undergirded the civil rights movement, and Herman Russell was one of his greatest lieutenants. He built half of the skyline. Atlanta is the cradle of the civil rights movement, but we didn't have a lot of unrest in Atlanta. The biggest thing that we had happen in Atlanta was the student movement, where 117 students got locked up in one day. They called one man, and one man bailed them all out. So much so that if you come to the Russell Center and put 504 Fair Street into your GPS, Fair Street becomes Student Movement Boulevard in honor of Mr. Russell for what he did that day. And if you want to put into context why I had no choice but to say yes to this opportunity, if you think of a Black man, and this is now talking about the structure, the building, if you think of a Black man 78 years ago in the Jim Crow segregated racist South, at a time where there were still documented lynchings of Black men in Georgia, and their only crime was thinking too much of themselves. This brother had the audacity to build a headquarter building that is a full city block wide and 50,000 square feet 78 years ago. That's impossible today. For real estate people in the room, try to build a building that's a full city block wide and 50,000 square feet and see if you have the pocket for it. He did it 78 years ago, and he put his name on it, H.J. Russell and Company. He wasn't going to hide from that. This is who I am, and this is what I do. But even more profound, he built his headquarters on a hill, because that hill overlooks Morehouse, Spelman, Morris Brown, ITC, and Clark Atlanta. It's not ancient history, guys. My dad, not my grandfather, not my great-great-grandfather, my dad wanted to go to the University of Georgia, but he could not because he was a Black man. Not my great-grandfather, my father. Mr. Russell knew that those students that would come from all over the world to go to the best schools available for Black people needed to see the physical manifestation of what was possible for people that looked like them. So he built his headquarters across the street, so as those students matriculated, they could see it as a beacon on the hill that we can. And so to take that building and carry it forward, he was an incubator and accelerator before the terms were even real. You know, if we think about anybody in real estate would have heard the name C.D. Moody and T. Dallas Smith and Egbert Perry and Noel Khalil, and the list goes on. All of them got their start at H.J. Russell. He literally was incubating talent, growing them, developing them, and not saying you're my competition, but son, go out there and do more than I ever could have dreamed. So when I'm talking to Egbert Perry and T. Dallas Smith about 3 weeks ago, and they're crying on the phone with me, two grown millionaires crying on the phone talking about HJ's legacy, because these two brothers had literally closed the largest real estate transaction in 2020 of any company in America as students of HJ. And so, you know, for what we're carrying forward, and as you said, Chris, it wasn't just the 50,000 square feet. If you come visit the Russell Center, the Pascal's restaurant across the street, that's Russell. The hotel across the street, that's Russell. 5 acres going towards Mercedes-Benz Stadium, that's Russell. 40 acres going south of Mercedes-Benz Stadium, that's Russell. The brother had a vision unlike anybody, because an area of town that was reserved for engineers and people that worked on steel and were really factory workers, it was the bottoms. But he had a vision knowing that at some point this would be downtown. And so the Russell family has probably the largest assemblage of contiguous property in a tier 1 international city of anybody in America. And it's owned by one family. So when you think about the $6 billion deal that's happening with the CIM group, when you think about the $3 to $4 billion deal that's happening with Newport, when you think about all the investment that Arthur Blank is making in the downtown area surrounding his dome, the parcel that connects to all 3 of those developments is all owned by a single family and was all because of the vision of Herman Russell. So when I challenge people to think a little bit bigger, the downtown doesn't always have to grow north. We have the opportunity to literally grow downtown south and have the level of innovation and inclusion and fierce intentionality, because when you visit the Russell Center, I am really serious about my money. And so every dollar that we spend, from the water we drink, the snacks we eat, pest control, low voltage, AV, architecture, general contractors, paint on the walls, you name it, we spend more with black businesses annually than most Fortune 1000 companies, and we're a 4-year-old nonprofit organization. And so, brother, it's in that spirit that it was beautiful when we didn't have anything. We were a gutted out building with roaches and rats all around, but we built it with the entrepreneurs. We would do tours every week and say, what do you need? What do you see here? What if we built and dreamed together? What would you need right here? And literally 4 years later, we created a space of deep belonging, because far too often we talk about diversity and inclusion, but never about belonging. You just can't make a space for me if when I get there, I still don't feel like I belong. We've not actually moved the needle at all. And so how can we create this space of deep belonging, a safe space for you to fail and fly? And this is one of those times where, yeah, white men in the room, you got to close your ears. I love you, but you got to close your ears, because if you're a woman or you're brown in this room, in banking, in finance, in real estate, you've heard it. You got to be twice as sharp, 3 times as on point, 4 times as perfect, 5 times as everything, just to compete with mediocre folks. That gets really heavy. And if you always have to be guarded, and you always have to have your armor on, and you always have to be 3 times as good, the thing is, if you can't be vulnerable, it's really hard to learn. Because if I can't be vulnerable, I'm afraid to raise my hand when I don't know. Because I got the whole of my whole community and society on my back. And if I'm the woman that raises her hand and doesn't know what a P&L is, then they're going to think every woman after me doesn't know what a P&L is. Or if I'm the one black guy that didn't understand, how this works or how to manage a balance sheet, then I got to carry that with me. If I can't be vulnerable, I can't learn. But if I also can't be vulnerable, you'll never meet the authentic me, and you'll never build true relationships. And everybody in this room knows that business moves at the speed of relationships. And if I can never show up as my authentic self, then you'll never really get to know me. And those relationships will not be built. And if we don't have an authentic relationship, you are never going to stick your neck out for me, because I don't know you well enough. And so creating this space where we provide access and opportunity, because I think the only difference between an Atlanta is Bankhead or Buckhead. In Douglas County, I'm sure there's a haves and a have-nots. The only difference between those 2 places is access, opportunity, and exposure. That's it. And we want to live at the nexus of access, opportunity, and exposure, and that's really the genesis of our work.
That's excellent. That is excellent. So as some of you know, our organization is focused on the recruitment and retention and growing of talent here in the community, growing businesses here in the community. That's attracting businesses that are here, growing existing businesses that are here, and then really focusing in on what we can do to support and grow small businesses and entrepreneurs in our community. And then lastly, we're really focused on how do we drive investment in various parts of the community. So in order to kind of fulfill those goals, we've got a team that's kind of built around the workforce environment. We're focused on the business recruitment. We're focused on the driving investment. Our next foray is really diving into small business and entrepreneurship. We've done studies, we've got strategies, we've got a plan in place. The next thing is just bringing on the talent to really help us provide the necessary support to small businesses and entrepreneurs. And so, it's also a great opportunity to have this discussion with you, to know kind of what the Russell Center is doing, to support that community. and really kind of what I would ask, kind of some advice that you might have for us, but then also kind of understanding, like, what are you hearing from those entrepreneurs? Like, what are some of the pain points? What are some of their challenges, as it relates to growing their business, sustaining their business, all the factors that kind of play into that might be great for us as we expand our support for that community as well.
Wow, that's a whole other luncheon, bro. Programming is problematic. Far too often, we create programs to be informative. We have a lot of knowledge. Come sit in the room. We'll dump it on you for an hour and a half. Good luck. We build programs to be informative. The goal should be to be transformative. And I don't think we put enough energy into that. Did anybody have a good time in college? Like a great time in college? Where'd you go? Yeah. That's a whole other conversation. I'm flying to Wilmington next week. But for anybody else, I don't know enough about UNC. Go Dogs, that's right. I met this brother like 10 years ago, 11 years ago, and I did a speech at UGA. He remembered, reintroduced himself, but that was also the night that I decided I was probably gonna marry this girl I was hanging with, and she traveled up to UGA with me at a moment's notice. That's a whole other story, but I will say this. For everybody that had a good time in college or loved their college experience, what I will tell you is this. Pop quiz for anybody in here that I've never met. And if I asked you to talk for 2 minutes about your experience in college, you wouldn't bring up a single class you took. If I asked you about the most memorable times, you wouldn't, or it was a single professor that may have touched your life, but you would not remember the curriculum or the syllabus. And I got a president right over there. I'm gonna tell you that almost in every case, except hers, but almost in every case, it is not the syllabus or the curriculum. It's the community, the culture, the covenant, what it means. When I say go Dogs in a room, I can meet the deepest, darkest racist that hates black people. And after that national championship, if I'm in the airport with a Georgia sweatshirt on and I say go Dogs, that racist is gonna run across that tarmac and be like, go Dogs, right back. And he hates black people. The community and the culture is that strong. So let's lead with community, culture, and covenant. What it means to be a dog. You and I were from different areas completely. But we could sit down and have a 3-hour conversation about Creswell or Russell or Tate Center or whatever it is. And it would be no problem at all, as if we were friends forever. So let us lead with community, culture, and covenant first. Wrap it around a world-class curriculum, but world-class access. I asked earlier, Sarah, around, what is your spend in Douglasville? Could we do things differently? Where does this money go? Who are you spending the money with? And can we shift our intentionality? And so when you start talking about access, you already have profit centers built within your community right now. If you can show me where the hockey puck's going, I can train the next Wayne Gretzky to score. If you can tell me where the plan for Douglasville in the next 20 years, then why are we not creating companies to meet those challenges of 20 years from now and being very intentional about who those company owners are? And I swear, man, that it's not rocket science in my head around, I spend $1 and I'm ensuring that you have the skills and the platform and the right structure to earn that dollar. And when we're looking at programs, some of the things we make mistakes on is that I put a company that's been in business for 20 years in the same class as a company that's been in business for 1 year. And what you see with those companies with the 1 year, they just keep going from program to program trying to gain traction. We stole the HBCU model. Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, graduate program, PhD. Ours is called Big Ideas, Inspire, Develop, Execute, Accelerate, Scale. I think the college model is one of the greatest economic mobility engines ever imagined. So what I do as a green freshman when you come to UGA and know nothing, you can look across and see the Black Affairs Council, which you eventually became president of. But when I met you, you were a freshman, and I spoke onto you, one day you're gonna be the president of this, and you literally became president. But my thing is, brother, that you saw it, and you could identify it, and you had a goal to reach for. So that freshman gets inspired by the seniors. But the seniors get fired up by the freshmen because they're coming in with all this fresh energy, and they're running around, and they remember when they were green and freshmen and why they're doing this work. And the seniors pour into the freshmen, and the graduate students actually become the model. I didn't know what an MBA was my sophomore year at UGA until I met a guy that was going after his MBA, and I said, well, what is that? And he taught me. And he walked me over to Terry College, introduced me to the dean of the business school, and the rest was history. That kind of circular economy with no waste, where we spend our money with the companies we support. We have this push-pull model where freshmen can operate in the same ecosystem as seniors, but I don't have seniors taking English 101, and I don't have freshmen taking Biophysics 903. And so literally as you move forward, and anybody in their college experience, if you can't pass English 101, you don't become a sophomore. Programs that allow me to go ahead and go out into business half-cocked, where I don't have my business plan, I don't have a use case analysis, there's really no there, but I mortgage my house, I blow through my savings, I empty out my 401k because nobody's really giving me the basics upon which to build a successful business. So our companies can't move from stage to stage until they've demonstrated mastery and demonstrated acumen that say from this stage you can move on to the next. I think that model, we're still testing it out and proving it out, but it's one that we've not seen in the country around how do you develop a business per stage, but also if a business comes to us, they don't start over at the beginning. Just like if I transferred to UGA and I did 2 years at West Georgia, I don't have to start over as a freshman. My credits transfer, and if I've been doing business for 10 years, I don't start over at Inspire. I may start at Accelerate. And that's where I grow from there. But at the end of it, brother, it's not about money raised, it's about contracts and business. We're in this thing to make money. And so how committed is Douglas to creating opportunities and spending money with the companies that you're incubating and developing and growing in Douglas County? And that is a big part of it.
That's awesome. So my sister actually is going through the Russell Center, and I have seen the evolution of her business as she's matriculating through this process. Her Poppy Co. on Instagram, check her out.
If you didn't get a plug, I was going to give it.
But just the phenomenal work that they're doing there. So we're about to wrap it up, but is there a burning question or two that can be asked and we could also finish on time? Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned the pre-pandemic. In pre-pandemic, there were a lot of unsafe spaces. But thanks to the pandemic, we see that the value and the ingredients can come from anywhere. So how do we reorient and reintroduce ourselves into those spaces to bring forth the ingredients and the collaboration that can happen?
Yeah. That's a $1 billion question, right? I mean, some of the greatest hell that I caught in beginning this journey with the Russell Center, it'd be hard to imagine now, but I caught the most hell by saying that this was going to be a space for black entrepreneurs. Screaming matches, yelling matches. We did the feasibility study. Jay, why don't you just sell the building and donate the money to charity? If you make it too nice, and we see a lot of money put into the infrastructure, if you make it too nice, the population you're going to serve won't feel comfortable in it if you make it too nice. Okay, well, why don't you just focus on early workforce development and GED training? I think that's a better fit for the demographic that you're going after. And so I took all of that personally. And, we were black before George Floyd. And so in this era of kind of racial recognition or racial reckoning or whatever you want to call it, I am urging anybody I encounter to just be authentically you and uncompromising. That I don't want to ask for a seat at your table. If you're unwilling to give it, I'll just go make my own table. And so, that part is kind of where we stand. That if we bring our best foot forward and we are worthy and we have done the work and we still don't have entrance or access, and there can only be one thing attributed to that, and that's probably not a room that I want to be in. One of the things that did separate is looking at, hey, there's a problem that we tried to hide under the rug for a long time. It got brought to the light. But I think if anybody that's black or brown in America knew that knee was on our neck long before George Floyd. And so now as we continue forward, when you talk about bringing more of those spaces and making them more safe, the safety comes from a level of courage and bringing your whole self uncompromising into those spaces and never going back to the place where you're afraid to say the word black.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much, Chris. I just want to thank you all for today, this conversation. And I want to thank you, Jay, for really highlighting
But it's just so exciting that you are really helping to cement the ideas that we have in this community. We're proud to say that Mr. CEO of H.J. Russell, Mr. Michael Russell, is a partner. He is an advisor as well as you on transportation in the county for us. But what's exciting to me is for our Elevate Douglas, Chris, and Sarah, and how the city of Douglasville, we're trying to bring an incubator space to our Mill Village area to have new businesses there and small businesses. So it's fairly difficult. We have a private person, Station Law Works, who has that model, but the question is, how do public-private partnerships work with government and with chambers and other entities? You have just a little peek of something you can tell us so that we can continue to move forward in this system.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, by the time you get to your junior year in the Accelerate stage, just like in college, you go in different directions. So we have a separate coursework and trainers and faculty for B2B, B2C, and B2G. And if you're talking about public-private partnerships, there are a couple of things that you can hold accountable. I guarantee when you look at your procurement process, they're probably in step 4 or 5 is where the majority of businesses just fall off and eviscerate and go away. You could fix that. How do you help fix for where you see the largest number of drop-off, where people are ineligible for contracts, where they don't have this level of preparation, be it their financials, be it their experience, be it their bonding? You can identify the cracks in the system and just fix the cracks. Right off the bat, you've increased the number of companies that are eligible to bid successfully for work in this county. But then if you have large corporations that are here that spend money in Douglas County, that have a large presence in Douglas County, they also probably have a large spend, much of which comes from outside of Douglas County. Have the hard conversation about, we're leading an effort to build the businesses in Douglas. And if you're doing business in Douglas, you got to do business with Douglas. And those companies immediately find pathways to prosperity, because X company, who used to spend $4 million a year with a company out of Canada, has now grown the company or helped sustain the company or has helped prepare the company that they'll do that business right here. And that $4 million contract could literally change the trajectory for that company for the next 50 years. And so I think it's that fierce intentionality. Public-private, but it's also a level of courage, because you are piercing a veil of things that have been in place for many a decade. And there will be some toes that get stepped on. And there will be some people that are very upset with the decision to put Douglas first, because they're pretty comfortable with the way things have always been. But if you want to see change happen, everybody knows the definition of insanity. And just keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, it won't happen. And so there has to be a generation of folks that say, you know what? We can do things a little bit differently. And I think that you already know where the gaps are. Fill them.
Well, I think that wraps up our time. Can we please give a round of applause to Mr. Bailey?
Thank you, guys. I will say, you talked about planting seeds. You did that today. Thank you. You certainly did that today. Chris, Jay, thank you for your time. Another big round of applause, please. As a thank you for your time today, a donation will be made in your name to the Douglas County Chamber Board Scholarship, which funds a scholarship for a high school senior in our community. So again, thank you for that. So now for a few announcements, and then we'll let you get to the rest of your day. The Douglas County Chamber's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council is seeking your feedback. So please complete the brief survey by scanning the QR code at your seat. You see the card, there's a QR code on it right in front of you. Please scan that. All participants will be entered to win an Amazon gift card of $100. Yes, $100. So please complete it by Friday, February the 24th. Also, join us for our next level networking breakfast on February the 23rd at 7:45 a.m. Our new breakfast event location will be the Courtyard by Marriott in Lithia Springs, okay? Lithia Springs. This event is offered at no cost for our investors, and I hope you can join us. Lastly, thanks again to Synovus for sponsoring our event today. I do want to invite Athena back up, the birthday girl, to help me give out some door prizes. So if you recall from last year and from the last luncheon, when we win a door prize, we get excited and we show our spirit, right? This free gift, okay? So if you win, express your excitement. We want to hear it, all right? So Athena, if you could please draw a ticket, and I will read out the last 4 digits. All right, we have 3 prizes. The first goes to ticket number 3599. Yeah! Now you heard that scream, that woo! That was pretty good. Oh, all right. What's the prize? We've got a Synovus gift card and a lot of other. Okay. And this is a gift card and goodies. That's what's in the bag. A gift card, a Sam and Roscoe's gift card and goodies. All right, next number, 3524. 3524. Edwin, yes. We need a little bit more, Edwin, but okay. It's a good try. All right, last chance. 3562. Woo, Mark! That's how you do it, Mark. Thank you so much for spending your time and hearing the seeds being planted. Go out, enjoy your day, be blessed, and we'll see you at the next luncheon. Thank you.